In what seems like a very short time, Leonardo DiCaprio has become just about the biggest, most popular movie star in the world.
I love him.
Everyone knows who he is, and no person alive does not know that he exists.
He's just gorgeous. I want to marry him.
He's blonde and blue-eyed.
I mean, it went beyond my expectations. You just have to sit there and go, okay, whew.
Leonardo has achieved this icon status very, very quickly that very, very few other celebrities managed to do.
Once I got it down, it became normal for me.
Leonardo has managed to achieve the sort of adulation that is usually reserved for pop stars. He's gained millions of fans across the world. In Paris, screaming fans chased him from a gallery, trying to get close to him. In Japan, girls hold parties where they listen to his movies and cry together. And in London, thousands block Leicester Square just trying to catch a glimpse of him at a movie premiere. Hollywood have also recognized his acting ability and his box office value, reportedly offering him $20 million a movie. It's an amazing achievement for someone who's still in their mid-20s.
I've never done something this dark. I mean, it was unbelievably hard to do.
His Titanic role in the biggest movie ever has made him a phenomenon as big as the movie itself.
Well, I have to say that Titanic was probably single-handedly the most incredible movie experience I've ever had in my life.
The epic movie which cast Leo alongside Kate Winslet has made movie history and turned Leo into one of the world's most recognized and most sought-after faces. Calendars, posters, and photographs hang from millions of bedroom walls worldwide, and there's no sign of his popularity slowing down.
People cannot get enough of him on screen as a person, as an actor, as a character.
The first time Bliss published pictures of Leonardo, we thought, well, yes, the readers will quite like that, but we were still totally unprepared for the level of response we got.
I think what we've been witnessing since Titanic embarked on its $1.5 billion gross odyssey is this amazing phenomenon of Leomania, which is something that we haven't seen the like of for a long, long time.
Leo is today a huge star unlike any other. Arnie, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Bruce Willis are all big names in Hollywood, but none creates the sort of reaction from fans that Leo enjoys. He's more than just an actor. He's the dream of a whole generation of fans. Leonardo grew up in Los Angeles, the home of Hollywood, the movie business, and laid-back lifestyle. But not all of LA is about movie stars and beach life. It was in the rough streets of LA that young Leo grew up regularly watching drug addicts from his bedroom window and on his way to school in the Los Feliz part of the city. Leonardo's parents separated when he was still a baby, and he lived with his mother. Although he was no longer living with the family, his father stayed involved in young Leo's life and continued his business selling comics to stores around Los Angeles. Leonardo attended the local high school in Las Vegas, along with 4,500 other kids from different backgrounds. The impressive building that houses the school has long been a location scout's dream and is featured in many movies and TV series.
Because of its beautiful architecture, Marshall has been featured in many movies and TV shows. The school itself is a star. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Pretty in Pink, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Like all high school kids, Leo's photograph is featured in the yearbook.
This is the John Marshall Barrister. It's our yearbook that we have every year. This is the 1991 yearbook, and you can see a picture of Leo in the 11th grade. And you can see that he looked very young. He would have been about 16 at the time.
Marshall is a high school with a huge range of activities for its students. It even has its own television and video department. Students from the video classes make programs around Marshall, and a young Leo featured in this Christmas video.
This week we asked Marshall students and faculty what they don't want for Christmas, and their responses were,
I don't want anything.
I don't want socks, underwear. I don't want underwear for Christmas, because then my mom makes me hold them up and show them to everybody. I don't want AIDS.
There are also a lot of performance classes at Marshall High, and Leo was in the drama class.
One of the things we have in the yearbook, besides the students' pictures, is the group pictures of all the different clubs and organizations. And this is the drama picture here, and Leo came directly into play production from his other school. And you can see, there he is up there, already looking very dramatic at a very young age. It's as if he is searching for his destiny in the sky. I mean, he was always very determined. Everyone talks about how he was very sure about what he was going to be doing and that he knew he was going to be a star someday.
We were proud of Leonard at Marshall. We ran notices in the bulletin a couple of times, I remember, of calling attention to bigger feature parts he had on that television series that he was going to do so that the whole student body knew who he was. Well, Leonardo was not a particularly active student because he was always going on interviews with his mother for television commercials and programs.
Leo's efforts to be a successful actor did cause him some problems at school.
His work before the camera in auditions and everything else came way before his schoolwork, that was for certain. Leonardo had what was needed for television. He was very pretty, he has a beautiful face, no teenage blemishes. He was rarely in class, and I finally had him removed from the class because he was never there.
Although Leo got into trouble by missing classes, there were different problems when he did show up.
I remember one of my colleagues just plain thought he was arrogant. And he was a show-off, you know, in other classes, I guess. He, you know, that energy had to come out. And as I say, my class was late in the day, and I was channeling that energy in exercises and things like that and participation. He always did those things very well.
Leo's former English teacher remembers him as a difficult student and a bit of a problem in her class.
At the time that he was my student, he was also a regular actor in the television series Growing Pains. And he was absent a fair amount of time. But when he came back to class, we had some problems. He tended to have a different attitude about being in school than what he should have. He tended to be a bit rebellious and somewhat arrogant and flippant in the classroom. Unfortunately, We didn't get along at all simply because he was defiant of any of the classroom rules, and he would defiantly stand up in class and say to me, I don't see why I have to follow these stupid rules. And of course, I couldn't just let that slide.
Holly did, however, recognize Leo's talent and feels that his talent might also have been the problem.
I noticed this quite a bit, that people who are artistic and bright often don't fit into square norms. And I think that the very structured atmosphere of a public high school is something that people that have those talents don't necessarily fit into.
Leo continued to try to juggle school with acting in TV series like Growing Pains and Parenthood, training films and commercials. But more and more acting meant less and less time at school.
Leonardo never finished high school. He dropped out of high school and has a diploma some way through the studio some way or some private place. He never finished at Marshall High School.
Even though he was never Marshall's best student, he is now its most famous ex-student.
The interest in Leonardo DiCaprio has just been overwhelming. We have been inundated with people calling, reporters, television programs from all over the world. Last month I was interviewed by Italian television, and it's just wonderful what's going on here. He's become so identified, or we've become so identified with him, that it's hard to think of him without thinking of us.
Leo's first movie appearance was in the furry monster movie, Critters 3. He also had a part alongside another Hollywood child actor, Drew Barrymore, in Poison Ivy. He later got the opportunity to act with one of his own favorite movie stars, Robert De Niro, in This Boy's Life. He was very quickly becoming one of Hollywood's busiest young actors. In 1993, he was cast as the autistic brother of Johnny Depp in What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
When I saw Leo in What's Eating Gilbert Grape, at first I thought he really was retarded. I wasn't sure.
He was still at that point a very young man, and it was to be some time before he really broke through to a wide audience. But it was definitely at that moment that Hollywood became really interested in him. He played this very difficult role, this autistic boy called Arnie, and it was perhaps still the performance of his career.
There's a certain blankness that you have to have with the character. It's a certain focus that I tried to work hard on in Lost, and I tried to develop. It was a lot of practice, and that once I got it down, it became normal for me. It became like I could switch on and off into it.
He did a fantastic job in that movie. I kind of didn't get the whole plot because I was little, but when I watched it later on, like I saw it, for instance, last month on video, he just does a fantastic job with the facial features.
Leo researched his role in Gilbert Grape by observing people with real-life mental problems.
So we took a lot of little things that they all did and incorporated it into the whole character and just did our own thing. But he is mentally retarded. That's what the official title of Arnie is.
After Gilbert Grape, everyone began to recognize his outstanding talent as an actor.
It's just rare. Really good actors and good artists that are genuine and authentic. You know, they're not trying to be cool or get praise or whatever. That's a rare thing, and Leo has that.
Leo's performance brought him an Oscar nomination as Best Supporting Actor while still a teenager.
Obviously, it'd be extremely flattering for any actor to get a nomination. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to deal with that when it comes, and if it comes, I'll be happy about it then.
Leo's next movie was in the gritty, difficult urban drama, Basketball Diaries, where he acted alongside the former rap star and Calvin Klein model, Marky Mark.
I'd heard about the book from my friend. Read it a lot a long time ago. My friends had all read it, and I knew it was an honest portrayal of this guy in New York who got addicted to heroin, and it was something that I was planning on reading for a long time, and finally when I got around to reading, I fell in love with it, just the honesty of the book, and the script came along and I read it in one day and said said yes the next day, pretty much. I play basically a regular kid from New York who's a writer, who writes in his journal about everything that happens to him in his life. He's basically a tough little kid that causes trouble all around New York, and he gets involved with drugs, heroin, and it's about the downfall of how his life goes and all the things that happen to him. I've never done something this dark, and in this film there's so many dark scenes, and it's like one of the most real scripts I've ever read in my life. And then you start getting to the dark aspects of the drug world and the drug life. It's definitely not what I expected, you know. You sort of you work so hard to be in this place, and then once you're there, it's sort of like, it's shocking to be there. Everything sort of happens like this, and it's not how, you know, it's not as glamorous as you expected it to be, but, you know, that's an old cliche, I suppose. I'm enjoying it, you know, I'm having a good time. I'm just going to try and do as much good work at this point in my life as possible.
His acting ability meant he was being sought out by stars to appear in movies alongside them. Sharon Stone chose him for the Western, The Quick and the Dead. But in his early movies, it looked like he was only choosing troubled youth type roles.
That's how, you know, I'd love to do a comedy. That's not the point. The point is, those seem to be the ones that are most well-written and have the best people attached to them. It just sort of worked out that way. I haven't really planned it. I mean, I'm up for doing romance, comedy.
Leo's next film was to make him a pin-up for girls across the world. Directed by Australian Baz Luhrmann, who'd already scored a surprise success with the offbeat comedy Strictly Ballroom, it was a funky, street-style update of the world's most famous love story, Romeo and Juliet.
It's not about it being Shakespeare or not Shakespeare. It's just an incredibly great story with this amazing street language. I mean, he just used language like a weapon.
You know, making it sound, you know, out, damn, spot, out. It's so histrionic and British and European. We try to make it colloquial.
You can keep changing the surroundings and the circumstances, and the piece is still going to be timeless.
It was a stroke of genius how they wrote the movie, and, you know, how fresh and exciting Leonardo was, and how they brought it up to date and set it in the 90s.
When I was interviewing Baz Luhrmann, who's the director of Romeo and Juliet, he told me that the moment that his film came together in his mind, when he knew that it was going to work, he had this great idea for this film. It's going to be an update of Romeo and Juliet. It was going to be all this kind of crazy Mexico meets Los Angeles meets Miami, and he had all these wonderful production design ideas for it. And then he saw some footage of Leonardo DiCaprio on screen, and he just said to me, and then I saw this beautiful, beautiful boy.
Romeo, well, he was written, I think, as one of the original rebels, you know. But in his world, he's rebelling against hate.
Romeo and Juliet is just the ultimate romantic story, and there he was as the ultimate romancer.
Romeo, you know, goes through a lot. You know, it does take a toll on you. It does emotionally sort of just go, you just have to sit there and go, okay, whew.
My favourite role of his is Romeo and Juliet, when he played Romeo. It was lovely seeing him say those beautiful words all the time.
Towards the beginning, when he first ever sees Juliet in the communal role, in the bathroom with the fish tank in the middle, and he goes running after her, and he just stands there in awe and stares at her, and he says the line, if I remember vaguely, is, "Doth I love till now, for I've thrown aside, I never saw such beauty till this night." As soon as he says that, his face is absolutely stunning.
A lot of people cried. I cried. He has this amazing way of bringing all the emotions from Shakespeare and anything, and it just kind of like, you get the picture. It's like he gives it to you so strongly that it's just so hard to ignore. It's really amazing the way he gives you a message.
It was teenagers going to see Shakespeare. It was uncanny how popular that movie was. And I think it was at that time that everybody, including the rest of Hollywood, realized what a star he was.
The first time I noticed the response to Leonardo was when Romeo and Juliet came out in Australia, because I was over there at the time, and it came out about 6 months before it came out in Britain. So the response to him was phenomenal. I was working on a teenage magazine out there, and we ran a small piece about this film thinking, well, you know, it's Shakespeare. And the readers just couldn't get enough. We were just besieged with phone calls, the lines went mad. And so from then on, we just started doing posters and everything we could possibly do because there was so much reaction to him.
Co-star Claire Danes was not happy with Shakespeare's tragic ending and wished for something happier.
It was so frustrating. Even when we were shooting the scene, I was like, Baz, can't we just shoot a happy ending just to know that some, you know, great ending exists on the shelf, you know?
Romeo and Juliet made millions of fans for Leonardo DiCaprio across the world, including many at his old high school.
My current students adore him. In fact, if I even mention that I was Leonardo DiCaprio's teacher, I have students coming up to me asking these same questions. What was he like in the classroom? Did he ever tell you any stories? Did he touch your hand ever? My students adore him. They just go hog wild over him. They were even asking me, do I know where he is? How can I contact him? I said, I'm out of touch with this guy. I don't know him now. And students are saying, can you get in touch with him? I'd like to take him to the prom, you know. I think that teenage girls are crazy about him everywhere.
Leo has become a huge phenomenon, chased by fans and paparazzi wherever he goes.
You've got people turning up wherever he's going to be, you know, screaming and just wanting to be part of the excitement, him being there. And that's something that is just, you know, I can't think of the last time that happened.
I think Leonardo has managed to cross over that boundary between pop stardom and the fanatical response you get to pop stars and to the movie world. Because traditionally, you know, movie stars were the ultimate in glamorous sort of image. And I think Leonardo has just come back to how it used to be.
People, I think, really underestimate how globally well-known DiCaprio is. There's a new Disney film, a remake of the movie The Parent Trap, which involves the story of two twin 11-year-old girls, one of whom lives in California and one of whom lives in London. And the girl from California has a picture of Leonardo on her bunk wall at her summer camp. And the girl from London says, who's that? And the girl from California says, it's Leonardo DiCaprio. And the girl from London says, oh, I've never heard of him. I mean, it's a comical scene, not intended to be that way because it's so preposterous. And the young girls I saw that movie with just started laughing because, of course, everyone knows who he is, and no person alive could not know that he exists.
Even before the movie opened, Titanic was a sensation. The most expensive movie ever, it cost over $200 million to make. And when it opened, it continued to be a sensation, breaking all box office records to become the most successful movie ever made.
When it finally opened, we'd been literally preparing at site at the cinema for a long time. We knew that the opening was going to be huge. And I remember the first weekend, every show sold out in the afternoon and in the evening.
It was a great, romantic, thoroughly involving, doomed, tragic love story, which is something that Hollywood has been, I think, slightly shy of presenting to the public for a while. And obviously it was wonderfully made, it had fantastic special effects. But I think it would have really been nothing without the central romance at the heart of the movie.
I mean, I'd never done sort of a film of this caliber. I've never done something that's sort of this epic in scale, and the simple fact that it combined, you know, an intimate love story with a gigantic film like this, and it actually works, was unbelievable to me. I mean, it went beyond my expectation of what a film could sort of be. It's an epic in every sense of the word, for sure.
I think people found him as a real romantic hero in Titanic. He is somebody who older people probably respond to very differently than younger girls, but I mean, what was really driving Titanic was the incredible turnout by teenage girls.
Well, I have to say that Titanic was probably single-handedly the most incredible movie experience I've ever had in my life. It was a long film, the longest film I've ever done, and it was a long journey. We went through a lot of things, and a lot of different emotions comes up doing a film like this.
Titanic, at its core, is a romance. You know, whether you like the movie or not overall, whether you think that the special effects were all that great, who knows. But at its core, it's about a guy who is willing to go through anything to be united with this girl that he is absolutely in love with and can't have, for any number of reasons, not the least of which the ship is going down.
Leo realizes how lucky he was to play the hero in the biggest movie ever made.
It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You just don't get things like this, you know, every month.
Leonardo and Kate were people that you really, you could feel these doomed, tragic lovers, that you could feel the incredible passion and the incredible sadness at the end of the film. And I think there were very few young men that could possibly have come close to Leonardo. I think it was a perfect piece of casting, and I think if you're looking at $1.5 billion gross, well, it wouldn't have been that without Leonardo.
I'm a lucky guy, and I'm also getting tons of more opportunities because of this film, which is only going to make me have better choices, hopefully.
The Titanic phenomenon just seems to keep on growing, and its worldwide impact is something few could have predicted. However, making the film was not always easy for Leonardo, and the laid-back Californian lifestyle didn't prepare him for some of the stresses of the production.
It was almost like basic training at points. I mean, it was unbelievably hard to do. Other points, like just the intimate stuff with Kate and I, was really easy and fantastic.
Love stories are eternal, you know, they go on and on forever. You can never go wrong if you have a good love story.
I saw Titanic 6 times.
I saw Titanic 8 times.
It's not a myth that girls have seen Titanic 10 times. I think you'll actually find that when Titanic came out, most young magazines experienced a little bit of a dip in their circulation because they were literally going to the cinema 10 times.
One of the most striking things that I noticed when I went to see the film myself was the amount of literally screaming girls that we did have in the cinema. One of the things that I wasn't expecting was during the titles of the film, when you'd have Leonardo DiCaprio come up on the screen, you just have this huge scream from a group of girls in the corner.
I just feel honored to be a part of something that I think so many people have related to in so many different ways, you know what I mean? It's almost become a cultural type of film, like an icon, you know what I mean? And it's something that I can tell my grandchildren about, and it's a situation that, you know, I'm happy that I was a part of the movie. That's the bottom line, you know.
Although Titanic did win many Oscars, DiCaprio didn't receive a nomination for his acting. But Leonardo is not disappointed.
I was happy to be a part of the film, and things happen, I think, for a reason, and for some reason it didn't, and I didn't, truthfully, I didn't expect it. You know what I mean? It's a situation where the film stands on its own, and those kinds of things happen for whatever reason, whatever timing or whatever, and it just didn't happen this time.
Following Titanic, Leonardo has become the world's most popular actor, with literally thousands of fans turning out to catch a glimpse of him anywhere he's due to appear. At the opening of The Man in the Iron Mask in London, 10,000 excited fans turned out to see their hero.
What is it about him, though? Well, I think he's very pretty, he's young, he's very rich, and he's very good.
Don't you hate him?
And he's very funny. I don't hate him at all. I like him enormously.
The Man in the Iron Mask was Leonardo's first movie to be released following the huge success of Titanic. It was a story based on the classic French novel by Alexandre Dumas about a French king and his imprisoned twin brother locked inside an iron mask. Leo played the parts of both twin brothers.
I really look forward to this opportunity, not only working with all the guys involved, but you know, playing somebody who's, you know, somewhat villainous like Louis is, was something that really excited me.
Leo and Man in the Iron Mask, that was fantastic. Just the two characters he plays, the king and his twin brother, it's just, they're so contrasting roles. I mean, one's a complete brat and the other's like this poor little helpless boy. He just you know, it seems like two different people.
Well, it was essentially a dream team and one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities to work with all these guys. I mean, these are world-renowned actors that I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of actors, and you know, it's one of those situations where, you know, we all realize that we want to be a part of this team. And going in there, each of them had their own particular process and how they went about doing their performances, and I just enjoyed watching all of them get into it. I picked up a lot of stuff from them. Watching somebody like Gerard as opposed to Jeremy getting into their character was kind of polar opposites. But they come up with the same thing, which is a fantastic performance.
Although Leonardo has captured the hearts and minds of millions across the world and been praised for his outstanding acting, his fellow actors think he's keeping it all in perspective.
He knows it's important, yes, for his career, but actually it's not important for him as a guy. And what he brings as an actor is a great sort of reality and honesty.
He has become rather gorgeous now that he's grown up. He, at the time I knew him, I would have never thought that. I thought he was just kind of a kid, looking like a kid. But he has grown very handsome.
I think Leonardo's gorgeous. He's got beautiful blue eyes.
He has a very, very high level of fanatical fans that, you know, really can't live without him.
Part of the DiCaprio mystique seems to be about keeping it real, just being normal.
Well, he is seemingly accessible and he's inaccessible at the same time, which is a seeming paradox, but true of a lot of actors who have huge followings. I mean, Tom Cruise is one of Hollywood's most private people, and yet he has legions of followers. The same is true for Brad Pitt. He's not somebody who does a lot of public appearances, and yet there are people who really respond to him and think that he is somehow like them. And maybe that's part of Leonardo's appeal, that he could just be, you know, a boy in the back of the math class that you just happen to take a liking to.
Leonardo is really not that much older than many of the people who you know, are so hopelessly devoted and in love with him.
Leonardo's appeal is not out and out sexual, because he's not a big beefy, you know, sort of corny movie star, but he does look like the type of boy that, you know, say a 16-year-old girl would actually fancy and would actually have a chance with, especially in Britain, because, you know, they don't go for big beefcakes over here. So Leonardo's he's just there, he just sort of, you know, encompasses their dream boy.
He is a lot less threatening to young girls than many other actors. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger is one thing and Leonardo DiCaprio is quite another, and I think that's what the studios find appealing, that he is somebody who can somehow enter into a role and yet is very much a person that the audience can relate to sympathetically.
I think young kids like me, we connect with him more on a personal level because he was not like an overnight success. He had to work his way to where he is. And it's kind of like with us, you know, you have to work your way to a goal. And, you know, we kind of know what he's been through a little bit, you know, working for years and years to become who he is. And we all hope to do that. You know, a lot of kids I know want to be famous and great. So we all look up to him. He's basically one of our best role models.
Leonardo's fans love it because he just seems such a normal boy. I mean, he has moved out from living with his mum and he's always been seen with his granny and his mum, and you know, it's great. He's just a real family boy and he doesn't pretend to be anything else.
Just the fact that he's not like afraid to be seen in public with his mom and his grandma, which is really cool. You know, sometimes like boys at my school, they're like, you know, Mom dropped me off a block away from school so my friends don't see you with me. It's like he's not afraid to, you know, be seen with them, which is really cool because it's like he's not afraid to be who he is, show his feelings.
Leo's strong family ties are clear, and he's more likely to attend a premiere with his grandma or mother than a model.
This is my grandmother, Helena.
I'm very glad to
see you in person.
One thing about myself, which I'm very proud of, is that I'm sort of able to detect what's reality and what's not, especially with human beings. I mean, people try and hide things, a lot of things, and with their real sort of intention with you. And I thank God I've got a good group of friends and a good family around me that I've sort of held close to me throughout this whole time. So I'm very fortunate to sort of recognize who people really are almost instantaneously. Sometimes it takes a while, but you know, I'm also trying to, you know, stay close to the people that I love.
Leonardo, he presents himself not like a traditional Hollywood film star. He doesn't look like the other big names like Brad Pitt and Johnny Depp or, you know, Keanu Reeves, that were quite clearly film stars and behaved like that and dated glamorous people and, you know, just lived the life. Leonardo is just totally much more normal than that. I mean, he could be in Backstreet Boys. He's just charming and he looks really, really young. And he doesn't appear to live an extraordinary life. I mean, he's only just moved out from living with his mum. So I think that sort of thing, you know, fans love that. He just seems normal. It happened to get really famous.
It's not like a massive movie star that, like Tom Cruise, for example, that he's up there. I mean, Leo might be up there, but it's not in the same league. He's still down to earth. He lives on this planet on Earth.
It seems like a lot of Hollywood stars space themselves from their fans, which is, it almost feels like, you know, they're pushing us away. They don't like us. We don't mean anything to them. And Leo, it's like, you know, he's right out there with the fans, running up to meet them, signing autographs, taking pictures. It's just, he's very into people. He's very social. And it makes us feel good because it's like, whoa, if, you know, like we ever went to a movie premiere, what if, like, he sees me, he's gonna run up and say, hi, how are you? This is cool. You know, it's like, you know, it just makes you feel really lucky almost.
There's no dispute about how good Leo looks on screen, but how good an actor is he really?
He is a good actor, yeah, but being cute does help him. I think he's definitely something that's not just a pretty face. I think he's certainly got some talent.
You know, he's good looking and he's lovely, so playing those roles makes him even more appealing.
Leo's very cute. He's a great actor.
I think people that have really only seen his later roles, particularly Titanic and Man in the Iron Mask, which didn't necessarily showcase his acting abilities, just assume that he's this sort of wonderfully charismatic, pretty presence on the screen.
He does have acting abilities, yeah, he's proved it before in Gilbert Grape, you know, when he wasn't so famous. He proved that he could act there.
In this boy's life, I think he came across very well. He was a very good actor there. He's very, very good.
The first time when I went to see Romeo and Juliet, because he wasn't that well known, I thought originally I did say, yeah, he's kind of cute, but I also did think he was a good actor.
Yeah, but you have to take the, you know, the reviews and all those things to a certain point. Those are other people's opinions of you. I don't personally agree. I think I have a lot of work to do as far as my acting is concerned, but you know, as long as I keep on working with the people I'm working with and trying to build myself as an actor, that I'm a young guy and I have, you know, I hopefully a long career ahead of me, and I want to just keep on learning as I go along, and that's all that's important to me right now at this point in time.
I really rate Leonardo as an actor. I think he's a very good actor, and he really proved that in films like What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and he was really good in Romeo and Juliet. He probably made that film.
I thought he's surprising. I think that must have been Gilbert Grape. That must have been the first thing I saw. But I don't think that he didn't radiate superstar to me. What he did was he really came off as a great actor, as a really solid actor who dived into a role and who wasn't afraid to embarrass himself. You know, whether depending on what it is he was doing, or getting emotional, or finding the core of a character. That's what he was amazing at.
I don't necessarily have really like a plan of attack for how I do movies. I sort of see something that I like and a character that I want to get into, and I just take it, and I don't really like sketch out, okay, maybe I should do this one for commercial reasons and this one for that. And I think it's okay now that I'm still young, and I don't need to sort of branch off and become some big thing, you know what I mean?
I think the two films that turned him into this huge romantic hero, the biggest romantic hero that we've seen for many decades, has to be Romeo and Juliet and Titanic. I mean, these are roles which any young actor would kill for. I think what Leonardo's got is he's got three things that you seldom find existing in one person. He is an incredibly good actor, and for a young man to have his talent is really quite exceptional. Of course, there are other good actors, but to combine that with such beauty and charisma and youth is such an extraordinary combination, and that is what makes him a star as opposed to just a talented actor.
I think audiences are used to seeing a hero play a very sympathetic part, and DiCaprio has not always played sympathetic characters. He's played characters who, in What's Eating Gilbert Grape and Basketball Diaries, that are not the kind of people you might want to take home to mom. They're not the kind of people you really root for throughout the movie. They're not the traditional Hollywood heroes. They are people who have troubles and difficulties and are not just the cut-of-the-mill Hollywood part. They're very, very difficult people to like and to relate to.
I think Leonardo is pretty respected, not just by Hollywood executives and directors, but also by the acting community. I know, for example, that Sharon Stone, when she was making The Quick and the Dead, she really, really fought for Leonardo, and that wasn't necessarily a decision that the studio were that comfortable with.
Man in the Iron Mask co-star Gabriel Byrne also rates his ability.
Can I say this? That I don't think that Leo needs an Oscar to validate his acting. That's what I think, and you know, he's a winner anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome, my friend.
Mark Summers, a movie casting agent in London and Hollywood, once had the chance to cast DiCaprio in a movie.
We had a film about 2 years ago, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, that we were looking at with some producers, and you know, we could have had him for, you know, very, very low price, and I wish we would have, because I saw him as a, you know, very, very good quality actor. And unfortunately, the directors at that time thought, you know, and the producers, oh, he's not going to be that famous. And look at him now.
When I met Leonardo, it was at the London UK premiere of Romeo and Juliet, and it was a really great party because there was no VIP area where Claire Danes and Leonardo and the director Baz Luhrmann were sort of hidden away, you know, drinking champagne. They were very accessible. They were sitting at a table and people were just coming up, and I was introduced to him by one of the people who worked on the film, and he was very relaxed. He was very charming. I didn't get the impression that he was this incredibly sensitive, angst-ridden boy who went home and sobbed into his pillow every night. He was there. He was with a bunch of friends. He was having a nice time. He'd been introduced to quite a few people that evening, and I don't imagine that I was probably the most exciting person that he'd been introduced to that night. But he certainly made me feel that I wasn't intruding on his privacy, and we had a little chat about what he was going to do in London and whether he was going to get to go to any clubs. You know, he was quite into hip-hop at that time, and I was suggesting a couple of places that he might want to check out.
I once was in Beverly Hills, and I was in the store where you get, it was the Sprint store for a cell phone. And it was about 5 in the afternoon on a Saturday. This was only a few months ago. This was before Titanic opened, actually. I guess it was about 6 or 8 months ago. And he walked in with an entourage of people, and they weren't like, there wasn't an entourage in the typical star sense. It was like high school friends or friends from childhood or whatever. I mean, he just had a group of like 7 or 8 people, and they wandered in. They were just looking at cell phones. I don't even know if he was even looking. I think he was just kind of wandering in because somebody else wanted to look. And it was kind of funny because people obviously knew who he was, but they didn't want to say it.
Many people have compared Leonardo to James Dean, the young actor who also captured the imagination of young people decades ago, but who died tragically in a car accident.
When I was young, obviously, so many pictures of James Dean, and seeing Leonardo DiCaprio, the similarity, and this was live. he's just got beautiful eyes and lips and complexion. It's almost as though even if he's 30, he'll still be a young little boy with beautiful skin.
Comparing him to James Dean is fair only to the extent that they were young actors, or in James Dean's case, was a young actor, had a meteoric rise. Now, James Dean didn't make a lot of movies. DiCaprio has already made 5 times as many movies, 4 times as many movies as James Dean did. So, in terms of their appeal and the way they kind of caught the nation's attention, I think there are a lot of similarities. And what happens next is unclear, but it's that same kind of fascination that the audience has for DiCaprio that the audience had a generation ago for Dean.
People have compared Leonardo to James Dean, and luckily for us, I don't think Leonardo is going to die a really pointless death and leave a beautiful corpse in a car accident. I think that Leonardo is probably a much less troubled man than James Dean. I think James Dean actually was a very difficult, dangerous person.
By a strange coincidence, Rebel Without a Cause, Dean's most famous movie, was filmed in and around Leonardo's childhood home.
Another very famous film that was shot here at Marshall was Rebel Without a Cause. James Dean and Natalie Wood. Very extensive use of the neighborhood. They used Griffith Park, which is right next door to us, the observatory, of course, for the famous scenes. And because they were high school kids and they needed a high school, they came over here, since it was so close by. So if you watch Rebel Without a Cause, you'll see shots of Marshall.
Leonardo DiCaprio has achieved in a short time what many actors never manage in a lifetime of movies. He's become more than just a star. He's become an icon to millions around the world. And whatever he chooses to do next, he will be sure to have those fans queuing at the box office just to see him.
I think ultimately his future is going to be in his hands. And I hope that he doesn't choose something that suddenly people turn off him. But I don't know if that's possible because he is such a good actor.
I think Leonardo will continue for a few years, definitely. He's got plenty of time in him. I mean, he still looks like he's about 16. So, yeah, his glory won't fade yet.
He's an actor that a lot of people want to make movies with. I mean, he has no shortage of offers. He could make 4 movies this year if he chose to do it and if his schedule permitted. How long his career is going to last is going to depend on his choices, but he's an actor who's chosen interesting and difficult material.
I think that anything that anyone's in, anything that DiCaprio's in, people will be running to join because they know it'll be successful.
Obviously, you know, if there's a film now and you're casting a film with, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio, you know it's going to be huge international, you know, hit, and it's going to sell everywhere. I mean, there's so many countries in the world. I mean, the boy is known absolutely everywhere now.